Just as he'd expected, the creature harassed him ceaselessly in the days that followed and wouldn't leave him alone. Shilian constantly spotted a cry-smiling mask or a white silhouette in many unexpected places. Sometimes it'd be at the head of the bed in the deep of night. Sometimes it'd be a reflection in the water. Sometimes the door would swing open abruptly, and it would be standing there. And sometimes it'd even be standing right behind Function. White No Face seemed to take pleasure in scaring him, and he purposefully made certain that he could only be seen by Shilian. Whenever Shilian couldn't take it anymore and pointed at him screaming, he'd disappear as soon as the others rushed to Shilian's side or looked over. Shilian spent his days in jumpy agitation, so bitter that he wished he could catch the creature and chop him into 8 large chunks. But he couldn't even manage to step on his shadow. Inevitably, his days and nights flipped, and his heart and body were exhausted. One night, deep in the darkest hours, he jolted awake and felt irrepressibly thirsty. Recalling that he hadn't drank anything the previous day, he crawled up to get some water. However, outside the room, he heard faint voices and weak candlelight. Startled, Shilian quickly hid behind the door, his heart thumping. Who could it be? If it's Father, Mother, or Function, why would they try to sneak around like this? But as it turned out, the ones sneaking around really were his father, mother, and Function. Function's voice was extremely hushed. His Highness is resting now, right? The Queen also whispered her reply. He's asleep. Finally, the King said. Don't wake him too early tomorrow. Let him sleep some more. Those words made Shilian's heart squeeze. Soon after, he heard the Queen sigh. If this keeps up, how will my son get better? Shilian could feel something amiss with those words, and Function replied in a quiet voice. He's only like this because he's exhausted. Too much has happened lately. Will your Majesties also keep a close eye on him? Please let me know as soon as possible if there's anything not right with His Highness. But don't tell him you did. Also, avoid saying anything that might provoke him. Shilian stayed in his eavesdropping spot, his mind going blank as he listened. Waves of blood rushed to his brain. What did this mean? What did they mean? I'm not crazy. I didn't lie. I was telling the truth, he screamed internally. Shilian slammed the door open, startling the trio inside the room. Function rose to his feet. Your Highness, why aren't you asleep? Shilian lashed out, shouting in his face. You don't believe me? Function was taken aback. Of course I believe you. Shilian cut him off. Then what did you mean just now? Are you saying that everything I saw was a hallucination? That I'm just delusional? The King and Queen tried to intercept the argument, but Shilian stopped them. Don't speak! You two don't understand anything! No, Function exclaimed. I believe you, Your Highness, but it's also true that you've been exhausted lately. Shilian stared at him but didn't reply. There were chilling winds blowing somewhere inside of him. He trusted that Function really did believe him. At least, mostly. But not completely. After all, Shilian had spent his recent days in quite a disturbed state of mind. If any outsider saw him, they would no doubt declare him a madman. What right did Shilian have to demand anyone wholly believe him? But it shouldn't have been like this. Function used to have absolute faith in him without reservation. Even if he only doubted at 20%, that was still unbearable. Shilian was filled with indignation and resentment. But he couldn't tell who it was aimed at. White No Face, Function, everyone, or himself. Without a single word, he turned to leave. Function chased after him out the door. Your Highness, where are you going? Shilian said with forced calm, Don't worry about it. Don't follow me. Go back. No, where are you going? I'll go with you, Function said. Having made up his mind, Shilian suddenly took off in a mad run. Function wasn't as fast as him, and was soon left far behind. He could only shout after him. The King and Queen both came outside and started shouting after him too, but Shilian pretended not to hear, and ran faster and faster. He had no choice but to go on the attack. If White No Face wanted to kill Shilian or Function or his parents, he could do it easily. Yet he wouldn't just kill and be done with it. Instead, he was playing with Shilian like a toy, making a fool of him. Shilian roared into the black night as he dashed. Come the hell out! You gutter monster! Get the hell over here! White No Face was coming for him specifically, so he believed that the creature would surely be following him. But even after Shilian cursed to hell and back with his insufficient vocabulary, none of the usual sneers drifted from unexpected shadowy corners, nor did anyone appear languidly behind his back to place their hand on his unsuspecting head. Shilian ran madly for kilometers before he finally exhausted his strength. He doubled over, hands on his knees to support himself as he panted harshly. His chest and throat were flooded with a metallic taste. A long while later, he abruptly straightened up and continued forward, muttering under his breath as he went, "So, do you want to drag this out?" "Fine, we'll drag this out slowly." He walked alone for who knew how long, through the wind, through the wild hills, old woods, and deep mountains. Fog gradually rolled in and thickened. All around Chilian were old trees sunken in darkness, flashing their claws. The trees leaned forward and bent at such extreme angles that it seemed like they were bowing, inviting him to step into a forbidden land of no return. Chilian could tell that whatever was ahead wasn't anything good, but also that it was unavoidable. He needed to put an end to this, so he had to come here sooner or later. Thus, he continued forward with grim determination. As he walked, something faint and shimmering emerged from within the white fog ahead. It looked like a glowing wall. Chilian had never seen anything like it, and he furrowed his brow slightly, coming to a stop. As for that wall, it was slowly moving forward toward him. Chilian tensed in alarm and snapped a branch off a nearby tree, gripping it at the ready. Only when he was less than 2 meters away did he realize in bewilderment that it wasn't a wall at all. It was countless ghost fires. There were so many that from afar it looked like a blazing wall or a giant net. While the ghost fires were strange, they didn't show any murderous intent. They simply drifted toward him silently, blocking him from continuing onward. Chilian tried going around them, but the ghost fires immediately changed direction and continued to block him. Chilian heard many voices, all talking at the same time. "Don't go there, don't go. There are bad things ahead. Turn around, don't continue onward." The voices were stoic and densely layered, washing over him like a tide and giving Chilian chills. He found himself surrounded, in the sea of ghost fire. Chilian noticed a ball of flame that was especially bright and especially silent. A ghost fire didn't have eyes, but when Chilian looked at this one, he could almost sense its burning gaze staring back at him. It seemed this particular ghost was the strongest of those present. All the other ghost fires were only following it. "Move," Chilian said coldly. The ghost fire didn't move. "Why are you blocking my way?" Chilian demanded. The ghost fire didn't answer. All the other, smaller ghost fires simply repeated, "Don't go there," over and over again. Chilian didn't want to bother with all this, so he struck out with a hand. He didn't disperse their souls. The strike was only meant to break apart the formation of the ghost fires blocking him, like waving away a band of fireflies or a school of little goldfish. Chilian quickly passed through them, dry branches and broken leaves crackling under his feet. Yet, when he looked back, the ghost fires were swiftly catching up to him, poised to form another wall. "Don't follow me," Chilian warned. The brightest, hottest ghost fire was leading at the very front, and it did not heed his words. Chilian raised his hand like he was going to strike again. "Keep following me and I might just disperse your souls," he warned fiercely. With a threat like that, many of the ghost fires were frightened, fluttering and shriveling away. However, the leading ghost fire only faltered for a moment in midair before it continued to trail him, no more than 5 paces behind. It seemed to be telling Chilian, "It doesn't matter if you disperse me." Or perhaps it knew that Chilian wouldn't really do it. A sudden and inexplicable anger filled Chilian. In the past, what little minion would have dared continue to harass him if he shouted at them? They would have disappeared in a flash with their tail between their legs. Now, not only did people step all over him whenever they liked, even this tiny ball of ghost fire wouldn't obey him, and took his threats as nothing. Chilian's eyes reddened from anger. "Even a little ghost like you is like this. You're all like this. Everyone's like this," he mumbled. It was a little funny to be so enraged by something so small, yet Chilian was genuinely filled with furious indignation. Unexpectedly, after his grumbling, the ball of ghost fire seemed to understand his anger and anguish, and it stopped in midair, no longer trailing him. It slowly led the hundreds of little ghost fires away, and they disappeared into the night soon after. Chilian exhaled, turned around, and continued onward. After walking for 700 or 800 paces more, he could faintly see the eaves of a building within the beguiling fog ahead. It appeared to be an old temple of the deep mountains. When Chilian approached and looked closer, his eyes widened slightly. It was a temple of the Crown Prince. This was a broken-down temple of the Crown Prince, of course. It had already been pillaged and wrecked by mobs, and the establishment plaque had fallen to the ground, broken in half. Chilian paused in front of the temple's entrance for a moment. Then he stepped over the sundered establishment plaque and went inside. The divine statue within the great hall had long since vanished. Perhaps it had been smashed, or burnt, or thrown into the sea. The altar was empty and desolate, and only the scorched base of the statue remained. On either side, the words body in abyss, heart in paradise, had been slashed some 30 times. Like a lovely woman whose face had been scarred by knives, it was no longer a beautiful sight, only chilling and hideous. Shilian kept his composure and sat on the ground inside the great hall, waiting for White No-Face to appear. After an incense time, a figure really did emerge from the beguiling fog outside the temple. However, it didn't look right. The figure had none of White No-Face's habitual ease, and its hurried steps were very unlike White No-Face's silent creeping. The one approaching mustn't be him, nor anyone Shilian knew. But then who could it be? Shilian was on high alert, but he only got a clear look when the person finally rushed into the temple of the Crown Prince. Unfortunately, this person didn't match any of his guesses. No matter how Shilian studied him, he was only a human passerby. Nothing suspicious or notable about him. However, Shilian still didn't relax his guard. Who knew if this was one of White No-Face's disguise? As could be expected from two people who had suddenly run into each other inside a broken-down temple out in the wild, Shilian was cautious of the man, and the man was similarly cautious of Shilian. A moment passed. Then the man finally ventured to ask, Daozhong, do you know what this place is? Shilian knitted his brow slightly and looked up. You don't know what this place is? Then how did you get here? I got lost, the man said. I walked around and around, but I just can't seem to get out of this forest. Shilian knew that this man hadn't gotten lost at all. If he really wasn't White No-Face in disguise, then he had most likely been lured in by something. Stop walking around. You won't be able to get out that way, Shilian said. Huh? What do you mean? But Shilian didn't respond further, just continued to meditate. If this man had been lured in by White No-Face, panicking would be pointless. There would be no leaving if he didn't want to let them go, so it would be better for Shilian to wait quietly and see what he planned on doing. The man was tired from running around, so he sat on one side of the room to rest, the two of them now at peace with each other. It wasn't long before another figure emerged from the fog and entered the temple, another confused traveler. Seeing that there were people inside, he quickly approached them. Hey, pal, can I ask what this place is? The two travelers started chatting, and a premonition started growing in Shilian's mind. It wasn't over. More would come. Sure enough, dozens of people arrived at this temple of the Crown Prince within the span of 2 hours, one after the other. There were all kinds, men, women, seniors, children, some by themselves, some in groups of 3 or 4, some whole families, and most of them had come here after getting lost. The reasons for their getting lost were numerous and bizarre. Some had even been strolling down a city street and had inexplicably found themselves lost in this forest. It was completely incredible. Shilian even noticed that one was the same street performer who had been so adamant about competing against him in boulder shattering. He didn't look very well. It seemed the competition had injured him badly. The two of them spotted each other but didn't say a word, only nodded in acknowledgement. It was easy to see that these were all ordinary people, and they had all been intentionally brought into the deep mountains by White No-Face. The alarm in Shilian's head was sounding louder and louder, but still he didn't move. He dug out a cold seed bun from his sleeve and bit into it forcefully, chewed forcefully, and then swallowed forcefully. He had to conserve all his energy to face the great battle that was likely coming. 4 hours later, this temple of the Crown Prince was full to bursting with lost people. Shilian counted silently and determined there were about 100 in total. Not a single one would be able to leave these woods. With crowds came bustling noise, and everyone started chattering. Did you all randomly end up here? This reeks of evil. Why don't we try to find a way out again? Let's go, let's go. I refuse to believe that not a single one of us will be able to find a way. Shilian was sitting in the corner and looked up abruptly. It won't matter how far you walk. There is no exit. The crowd looked at him. How come? Because you were led here by a monster. You're his toys. So why would he let you go so easily? Shilian said bitterly. Silence descended upon the room. Within the crowd, some thought he was an alarmist, some thought he was deliberately being cryptic, and some thought he shouldn't be underestimated. One of them stood up and asked Shilian, Who are you? What makes you say that? I think he was the first one here. He was already sitting there when I came. Weird. Yeah, and his face is covered too. Do you have any proof? One asked. There is no proof. Believe it if you will, Shilian said evenly. The monster certainly didn't lure you here to invite you all in for a meal. I don't think I need to tell you to be a little more careful." After he spoke, but before anyone could respond, the sound of frantic footsteps came from the far distance. Everyone instantly perked up. "Another one's coming!" There were some who wanted to go outside and check it out, but just as they crossed the temple threshold, they hastily slipped back inside. This was because the running noise was accompanied by a wave of crazed screaming. The screaming voice didn't sound human at all. Everyone's faces dropped, and they all backed further into the temple. "What the heck? Who could that be? It's not some beast, is it?" As the figure within the beguiling fog swiftly approached the temple, Shilian narrowed his eyes. "No, it's a person!" Except the person was running in their direction and howling deafeningly at the same time, his hands covering his face. Seeing that he would make it to the temple at any second, Shilian squeezed through the crowd and stood at the front to see what was happening. It was as if the man had no eyes. He crashed straight into a tree at the entrance of the temple of the Crown Prince. Bang! He bounced back a good 3 meters, then fell to the ground unconscious. The crowd was shocked. Still crammed inside the temple, they all stretched their necks out to gawk. What happened to that man?" they wondered apprehensively. Some, like the street performer, were gutsier and declared that they were going to examine him. "Don't go near him!" Shilian immediately called out. Those people jumped at his severe tone. "Then what do we do? Just let him lie there?" "I will go take a look," Shilian said. "Then you be careful, okay?" the crowd said. Shilian nodded and approached the tree slowly, then crouched next to the man. He was about to move the hand covering the man's face when he suddenly jumped and let out 2 shrieks. Yes, 2 shrieks at once. 2 sounds happened at the same time. One came from his mouth, and the other came from his face. Another face on the man's face. Human face disease. Goosebumps instantly raised on Shilian's skin, and his pupils shrank. The crowd within the temple was frozen, watching this horrifying scene. After the man sprang up, he dropped his hands and began to charge over to where the people were. But thankfully, Shilian had quick reflexes and struck. The human face disease victim was instantly sent flying dozens of meters away by his slap. Shilian then hastily backed away to shield the entrance of the temple, while exclamations of panic and shock sounded from the crowd behind him. "I thought that disease only appeared in the imperial capital. So many people died. But wasn't the plague extinguished? It's not real. It can't be real. Is that really a face on his face?" The horror only increased in the next moment, when more wailing echoed from all around. Over 10 wobbling figures were approaching the temple. They didn't need to look closer to know they all had human face disease. "Everyone run! Spread out! Don't let them come close!" someone yelled. But Shilian shouted, "Don't spread out! Who knows how many more of them are in the woods? If there are others out there, it'll all be over. Then what do we do? We can't stay here like sitting ducks. Isn't that just waiting for death to come to me?" The branch Shilian had broken off en route was hanging at his waist, and he grasped it to wield it like a sword. "Don't worry. They won't come here. I get to decide whether they can approach." This was his domain. The temple of the Crown Prince. "You!" Not waiting for further questions, Shilian leapt out. With a few swings of his branch, all the human face disease victims fell to the ground in an instant. Committing word to action wasn't hard for Shilian at all, and sure enough, none of the disfigured wretches could get close. The crowd within the temple watched, punctuating the scene with harsh, gasping breaths, growing more and more shaken as the fight went on. When they saw that Shilian had triumphed, they all cheered, hollering thanks to the heavens. At some point, the ghost fires had come drifting on the night air from within the woods, and now they were dancing madly everywhere. Shilian couldn't tell if they were helping drive away the disfigured wretches, but in any case, he didn't think they were trying to obstruct him. After making a sweep of the area, Shilian tried to sheath his sword out of habit. Only after his hand came up empty when he grasped for his scabbard did he remember that he was wielding not a sword, but a tree branch. He felt awkward for a moment. Suddenly, he spotted a white-clad figure not far away, waving and beckoning him. Shilian's blood was still boiling from the fight, and he instantly gave chase. "Don't even think about escaping!" The band of ghost fire zoomed over and followed his charge like they were lighting his way. Naturally, White No-Face wasn't trying to escape. He strolled at an easy pace, his steps languid, but he always remained 7 or 8 paces ahead. Shilian pursued him for a few steps before he realized something and immediately turned back. Noticing that he wasn't chasing anymore, White No-Face stopped. "Why aren't you following me?" Shilian looked back. "You just want to lead me away so you can spread another wave of human face disease. Why would I follow you and let you have your way?" "No," You're mistaken. My objective isn't to lead you away. My objective is you. Although his expression was concealed by the cry-smiling mask, for some reason, Shilian could sense he was smiling. Luring Shilian away truly made no sense. If White No-Face wanted to spread human faces again, he could have done so anywhere else in the world and Shilian wouldn't have been able to stop him. So why was he doing it in these deep mountains? Shilian stopped. Then what exactly do you want? He had asked that same question countless times and was starting to lose his patience. I've already told you. I want you to come to my side, White No-Face replied. Shilian wielded his tree branch and pointed at him. While it was not threatening whatsoever, even a little funny, it was nonetheless the only weapon he had on hand. Thank goodness a particularly bright ball of ghost fire landed on the tip of the branch and helped add some battle aura. Why do you want me on your side? To take your life? Shilian demanded sharply. White No-Face only chuckled softly. Your Highness, you are a beautiful block of jade, he said warmly. Allow me to guide and educate you. Shilian could not immediately formulate a response. Feeling both incredulous and furious, he couldn't help but click his tongue. You? Educate me? My master is the state preceptor of Xianle. What the heck are you? Where did you come from, you monster? White No-Face extended a finger and waggled it. You're mistaken again. Your Highness, perhaps it would be better to say that I am the only one worthy to educate you. Your master, the state preceptor of Xianle. His voice turned strangely arrogant and condescending. That thing isn't worth mentioning in my presence. On the contrary, you've been absorbing my lessons very well. What did you teach me? Shilian spat angrily. What the heck are you talking about? I don't understand at all. White No-Face snorted a laugh. The first thing I taught you is that you are powerless in the face of many things in this world. At his words, countless chaotic images and voices flashed through Shilian's mind. He gritted his teeth and lunged with his sword, but White No-Face easily avoided. In the second thing, he seized Shilian, making him lose balance and almost trip. Shilian felt a hand stroke the top of his head. Do you want to save the common people? They don't need you to save them. They aren't worthy. Shilian's movement faltered for a moment, but then he slapped the hand away before turning and stabbing again. White No-Face snapped the branch in his hand and dodged behind Shilian, quickly placing 2 ice-cold fingers on a fatal point to the back of his head. Shilian was sure his brain was going to be pierced at any moment by those prodding fingers. He froze in place. From behind him, White No-Face spoke again. If you don't come to my side, then you will never win against me, and I will always defeat you. Shilian panted and said darkly, Come at me any time. He paused for a moment, then kept speaking, saying each word slowly and clearly. I can't win, but that's only for now. You can defeat me countless times, but you can't kill me. As long as you can't kill me, I will surely defeat you one day. When the ghost fire heard his words, it blazed even more ferociously, like it was going to brighten the entire night sky. Behind him, White No-Face was silent for a moment. Then he said, I can't kill you? Shilian held his breath and didn't speak. In truth, he didn't fully know what the undying body Junwoo had granted him could handle. If White No-Face really did pierce his skull in a moment of fury, would he still live? White No-Face continued, his tone even. Indeed, I can't kill you. I won't kill you either. But don't be too confident now. I hope you don't have any regrets about this later. Regret? What would he regret? Shilian hadn't yet figured it out when a hand chopped his neck violently. He instantly sank into darkness. Within that darkness, there was light and warmth and some distance ahead. Shilian moved toward the light and regained consciousness little by little. He opened his eyes slowly. The first thing he saw was a ball of ghost fire floating above him. It seemed that the little ghost fire was the source of the light and warmth he had felt while unconscious. Seeing that he was awake, the ghost fire immediately pressed closer to Shilian, then quickly decided that getting too close wasn't acceptable, and backed off a little. Shilian couldn't help but consider this ball of ghost fire exceptional. If he remembered correctly, it was the same one who had created a formation to block his path through the woods. He wanted to reach out and poke at it, yet when he tried, for some reason his hand didn't move at all. Shilian was perplexed and instantly snapped out of his reverie. He dropped his head to look and quickly discovered why he couldn't move his hand. His arms and legs were bound. He was firmly tied down on the altar atop the scorched base of the missing statue. There were many people squeezed around the altar, and hundreds of round, unblinking eyes were staring up at him. And that's chapter 99.